Hey everyone, welcome. Yay, we are live. This is Heather Ashamara. Welcome to our Living the Four Agreements webcast. And our focus for tonight is impeccability from the heart. So welcome to everyone that's joined in live. And if you want to chat and share with us what city or country you're calling in, that would be wonderful. You can do that in the chat bar. And for those of you that are tuning in live, remember that at any time, if you want to ask a question, you can chat it. For those of you that are tuning into the recording, feel free at any time at living the 4A. It's living the and then the number 4A at gmail.com with any questions or comments that you want to share. So tonight we're going to explore what it means to be impeccable. And the word impeccable has a little bit different of a definition than what we often think about. So I want to welcome Gail, John, Kim, Russ, Susan, and more coming on. And again, as you join into this webinar, feel free to share via chat where you are tuning in from. This morning we did another broadcast at around 2 o'clock Central, and we had Australia, Canada, California, Texas, so folks calling in from all over the place. And what a gift for us to get to explore within a sacred community how to deepen our relationship with the Four Agreements. So I'm going to wait just another minute to see who else comes on the broadcast, and then we'll go right in. So let's just do a quick grounding. You can close your eyes. And taking a breath into your belly. And letting yourself rest into the feeling sense of when you feel impeccable in your life. What does that feel like when you're being impeccable from your heart? You can imagine a time recently where you've had communication where you were feeling that communication was really coming from your heart and that you were being impeccable with your words. Great. And naming your intent around being more impeccable in your life. So what's the quality, the focus, the intent that you have around being impeccable? Why do you want to be more impeccable in your life? So feeling that sense in your body. Why would you like to be more impeccable in your life? What's your focus? What's your intent? And when you're ready, holding that intent in your heart, you can open your eyes and be present here. So the way most of us have defined impeccability from the judge's point of view is that to be impeccable means to be perfect, that we never make a mistake. And really love that helped me to be more impeccable in the world and to let go of this idea of I have to be perfect. Because you can feel in your body for ourselves that there's some way that we're supposed to be, that there's a perfect right way to be, creates a lot of stress and also often creates a lot of self-judgment towards ourselves or judgment towards others, or a feeling of being victimized, that I can never do it right. So we want to let go of any place in our life that we are holding ourselves to an impossible standard. and come back to really living from our impeccability from the heart. So, first definition of impeccable comes from the Four Agreements, Don Miguel, talking about how impeccable means without sin. And that what to sin is any time that we go against ourselves. And so to be impeccable with our word is to not use our word against ourselves, to only use our word in service, in love, in spaciousness towards ourselves, so that we're not using the word to judge, to criticize, to compare, to put ourselves down. That's a really potent way to be impeccable. And there's another definition. As I was doing a bunch of research around what the heck does impeccability mean, I came across another root meaning of the word impeccable. So from the Greek, there is a definition of impeccable which means to not miss the mark. So being impeccable meant, it was an archery term, and it meant that you hit your mark. Okay, I was so excited when I read that term, because what I recognized is that in archery, so if you pick up a bow and you stretch the bow back and you shoot, one, you know where your target is. You have an intent. You're clear about what your focus is. And two, you don't expect yourself to make the target every single time. You know there's going to be days that you don't hit the target. You also know that when you first that it's going to take practice to hit the target. So that's another really important piece, is that being impeccable is about learning how to hit our own mark. And so first, we need to know what's our mark. What is our intent? What is our focus? What are we aiming towards? And our word really is like that arrow. And our intent, our energy that we draw back to release, to let the arrow go. And sometimes that arrow is going to hit the mark, and sometimes it's not. So, number one, we want to hit our own mark, not other people's marks. And what I mean by that is this. Often we live life trying to figure out what other people want us to be, or how we should be in the world. We're looking at other people's mark, other people's focus, and trying to. The truth is, it's one, exhausting, and two, doesn't work. Because we can never really be inside of somebody. We're just guessing what they want us to do. And two, we're not living our truth. We're not living our impeccability. We're trying to be impeccable for others, which doesn't work. So impeccability for ourselves means that we start with compassion for ourselves. We start with love. We come from the heart, knowing that we're going to do our best in being impeccable, and that we're practicing using our word in a way that is of most service to ourselves and to everyone around us. In order to do that, we have to be clear. What's my intent? What's my focus? Where am I aiming? And then we practice. And sometimes when we're practicing sometimes it doesn't come out exactly the way we wanted it to. Sometimes people don't take what we meant in the way that we were trying to say it. Sometimes people go into reaction towards us. So it's not so much how we're being received. It's, are we on target with what we're wanting to say? So in some situations in our life, we're impeccable with our word, and that truth is received. Okay, someone goes, yes, I hear you, I see you, I get it. And sometimes that truth is not well received. People go, I don't like that, I want you to change, I want you to be different, I want you to go back to who you were before. And I hope you're understanding that. It's about what our intent was, and did we follow our intent? Now, we can always tweak how we communicate to help create more bridges between ourselves and other people. And that's a really beautiful way to be in relationship. And for me, that's the heart part, is that I want to communicate and be in relationship with other beings. So I look for how do I create bridges? And those bridges are about heart communication. But they're not about trying to tell the other person what I think they want to hear versus what's true for me. Being impeccable from the heart means that we're willing to listen to so that when we're communicating, we first tell ourselves the truth, and that we're able to witness our own truth. And then we choose how we engage with others around that truth. There are some things, for example, in my life that in certain situations I just wouldn't share with people. I know who I am, I know what my beliefs are, but there's certain situations that I wouldn't necessarily share my beliefs because they're my beliefs. Think about a situation a while ago when I was with my mom, my sister, and a friend at one of their friends' house. And they were a very different political orientation than I was. And I got this pretty quickly just listening to the conversations and looking around the house. And I know at a younger time in my life, I would have gotten into that. But I noticed that I was a guest in their home and that I was there to play dominoes. That was our purpose. And I asked myself, what's my intent in this relationship? And recognized in this particular relationship, my intent was simply to be present and enjoy myself and enjoy the company I was in. And so how did I do that? My aim was be present, love this moment. And I did that by holding my opinion to myself. Okay? That was a choice based on what my aim was for myself. And it was a beautiful evening. We had a lot of fun. And off we went. Now, if my intent was different, so let's say I was in a phase in my life or it was really important to me, or somebody said something that was very upsetting and I needed to share, this is how I see it, then that would be my aim, and that's how I would use my word. So what our intent, what our aim is, might be different in different situations. And we're using our word to be impeccable, to tell ourselves the truth, and to be clear about why we're using our word, what our intent is for using our word, and that comes from our heart, our love, our compassion. Sometimes that might be really fierce. It might be a fierce boundary. It might be a fierce truth. Being impeccable means that we bring forward our openness and our presence as we're making a boundary or as we're stating a truth that might not be very welcome. That we stay present with ourselves and that we stay present with the people around us. So as we're going through this call, we're going to be together for about 15 more minutes. I want to say hello. Hey, Yana, so glad you're here from St. Petersburg. John from State College, Pennsylvania, welcome. Russ from Austin, hey Russ. And Kim from Dallas, Texas. And there's others of you that are live. Feel free to share where you're calling in from. And if you have any questions at any time, feel free to chat. Be happy to answer any questions. And in fact, I'm going to go to the Living the Four Agreements Facebook page because there was an interesting question there that I want to bring into this webcast and answer. So any questions, you're welcome to share. For those of you that are listening to the recording, you're also always welcome to email me, living the 4A, and it's the number 4, livingthe4A@gmail.com. So feel free to email me any questions or anything that you want to share. So part of being impeccable from our heart is learning the difference between discernment and judgment. So judgment has an energetic trigger to it. So it's when we're triggered, when we're upset, and the judge often is making us wrong or making somebody else wrong. There's blame, there's shame, there's frustration that is embedded in judgment. There's "you're not doing it right" embedded in judgment. The difference between judgment and discernment is really important when we're learning to be impeccable from our heart. So discernment is about simply witnessing what's true, discerning the truth, taking the data in. And that means we need to be willing to let go of our story, any story that we're holding, to simply show up with what is now, what's true in this moment. When we discern, we might see things that we don't like. We might see challenging situations. We might see places we don't agree with our own or other people's behavior. But we don't have a judgment around it. We just simply notice, this works for me, this doesn't work for me. Discernment creates a lot of spaciousness in our being and also a lot of creativity. We become really creative when we are discerning because we have the data in front of us and we can make a new choice based on what we know. And that creativity is also one of the key ingredients to being impeccable from your heart. There's always going to be challenges in life, and that might be challenging people in our life. And I see it, there's two kinds of challenging people. There's people that are challenging because they trigger us. We'll take those folks petty tyrants. So they're the people that can make our life miserable by just one word or a look, and we're triggered. And it's really about us. When we're feeling judged by someone or misunderstood by someone, what's being touched is the places that we judge ourselves or the places that we feel misunderstood. So challenging people in our lives are actually wonderfully useful because they help us to sand off our rough edges. They help us to see where we're in self-judgment. They help us to see where we're using the word against ourselves because they will reflect that. If someone is judging me and I don't believe the judgment, I won't have a reaction to it. It'll just be, oh, that was interesting. Whereas if I have an inner judgment around something and somebody says something, then I'll feel that. There's also people in our life that can challenge us, that invite us to stretch, to be more than we think we are, that help us to find. So this idea of archery and hitting our mark. If I'm in a relationship with a challenging person, I would then get really clear, what's my intent in this particular relationship? And then I would probably get a tremendous amount of opportunity to practice hitting that intent that I set, because I'm going to be challenged by the other person and my own reaction to them. So I'm not trying to change their behavior. This is really important. I'm working to change my reactions based on what my intent is on this relationship. Now, with any relationship, you don't need to stay in the relationship. In any relationship, you can make a choice to say, I'm not interested in continuing in this relationship. And you can be impeccable from your heart by telling the truth and ending the relationship. We're choosing to create a lot more spaciousness in the relationship. Then there's also times when we get comfortable and we think, okay, this is my mark. This is my capacity to shoot my arrow, to hit my easy to hit the mark over and over again. So we feel comfortable, we feel safe, it's easy. People that challenge us are people that go, hey, I think you've got more in you. And they move that mark back. They move the target back and go, okay, try it now. And we might say, I can't shoot that far. And they say, yes, you can. So it's really wonderful to surround ourselves, to be in communities, to have mentors, to have friendships of people that challenge us to stretch our aim. Going back to this idea that to be impeccable means to hit our own mark. That we want to be gaining skill, gaining our power, gaining resiliency by hitting the mark farther, by stretching ourselves. And that means any time that the mark gets moved, any time that we decide we're going to stretch, that we're going to do something more, that we're going to do something bigger, we're going to go through a phase where we don't hit our mark, where we have to practice to find our way. And this is really important. Anytime we're starting something new, I think sometimes people forget that when you're starting something new, what that means is that you're challenging yourself. And often it means you're going to make mistakes. You're going to miss your mark. And so those feeling senses of insecurity or vulnerability or I don't know how to do this are natural when we're stepping out of our comfort zone and we're doing something that we haven't done before. So make sure that you surround yourself and that you also, it's the right word, that you cultivate inside yourself, there it is, that you cultivate that cheerleading, yes, you can do it, try again, try again, try again. And that there might also be times that you want to move your mark closer, that you realize that you're stumbling on something, that you've been trying to do something and you can never quite get traction. You know those places where there's something you've wanted for a long time, or it's a big step in your life and you just feel like you just can't quite get there. You just can't quite get the movement going. So to be impeccable with your heart from those situations means to bring your focus closer, to make a smaller step. It's what I call to make a baby step. So that it's actionable, so that you know when you set your intent for that particular mark, you're going to hit it. So here's a silly example, but a really great one. So let's say that I'm spent most of my life not saying what my truth was and always agreeing with what everybody else wanted. Okay, so I might have a desire to hit a mark where I always say what I want. But if I've spent my whole life not saying, I'm going to miss a lot. Okay? I'm not going to hit the mark every time. So what I might want to do to practice is pick really, really easy situations. So let's say I might say, okay, so where I'm going to practice I'm going to share what's true for me. And I'm going to do so from my heart. So I'm going to connect to my heart. I'm going to ask myself, what's my truth? What do I want? And then share, even if it's not a popular thing. Okay? So at first it might come out kind of awkward. So someone might say, what do you want? And you'll go, I want Italian food, because you've never said it. Or could I have Italian food? Would Italian food be okay? And then you look back and you realize, oh, okay, I had anger, or I had withhold, or I had shyness, or I had apology in my voice, and you know, okay, that wasn't quite the mark I wanted to make. But now you're on the road towards that. keep making it easier when you're really having a hard time finding traction or moving something in your life. Then make it easier for yourself. Break it down. Be creative in how can you be in relationship to your word in such a way that you hit your mark, so that you can celebrate that success. And then move it out a little bit more. Stretch again. So we have a few more minutes together. Time is going by so quickly. Any questions or comments that you want to share? So please feel free to chat and ask any questions or comments. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go check in with this question that was on the Living the Four Agreements page. That was a really good one. So we put a post up today, and that post was, whatever life takes away from you, let it go. And someone wrote, oh, where is it? Darn. Maybe it wasn't in that one. There it is. Wrong quote. Okay, here's the right quote. Missed the mark on that one. It is when we lose control that we repress the emotions, not when we are in control. And so somebody wrote, so when we get control of a situation, we get to deal with all of the emotions. You hold your breath, deal with it, and then fall apart. What Miguel's talking about with this quote, when we lose control that we repress the emotions, not when we are in control, is that when I'm in relationship from my heart with my emotional body, and for me, this is when I'm impeccable with my emotional body, I'm telling myself the truth about my emotional body, I'm then in control because it's in front of me. I'm witnessing what's true, and I can then choose how to express it. We lose control when we are telling ourselves, I shouldn't have that emotion, that's not what's true for me. When we push and try and repress the emotion is when we lose control of it. That's when the emotions come out sideways. So being impeccable with our relationship, our emotional body, is about being in a relationship with our emotional body, and our emotional body as a really important tuning fork. So when an emotion arises that's challenging, that's difficult, we can, from our heart, say, okay, what's causing this emotion to arise? What's the story? What's the belief? And how can I create spaciousness in my being to allow this emotion to arise and move through without me trying to repress it, make it something else? And it doesn't mean that we have every emotion that arises. It means that we're in choice. Being impeccable doesn't mean that we share everything that we're thinking all the time, no matter what. Being impeccable means that we tell ourselves the truth and that we're clear with what our intent is. And we're willing to practice over and over again, pulling back that bow intent and letting it fly and noticing, did it miss the mark or did it make the mark? All of it, when we're aware, and really awareness is one of the biggest keys to being impeccable. Awareness brings us back into this moment and helps us to get the truth and what our focus is. And being in relationship from our heart means that we choose to use the situations in our life, even the difficult situations, to benefit ourselves, to support ourselves, to nourish ourselves, and to sand off the rough edges. So may you continue to practice your impeccability, to practice coming from your heart, knowing that sometimes you'll hit the mark, sometimes you'll miss the mark. And it's your compassion and self-love and commitment to try again that creates that state of impeccability. Thanks so much for joining me this evening for this broadcast of Living the Four information and goodies. And I'm going to start doing in the next week or so a bi-weekly, bi-monthly, I can never get that quite right, every 2 weeks newsletter with tips and fabulous stuff around living the four agreements. So thanks for being part of this community. And you can always check on the Facebook page, Living the Four Agreements, for daily inspiration, insights, and tips. Take good care. And bring your love, all of your love, to yourself so that you can discern, not judge, discern what your next action, what your next words are from a deep commitment to yourself and your own love. Blessings. Bye-bye.